Thank you for joining us for a conversation with Cole Hocker. Obviously, with the number of people here, he needs very little introduction. So we're not going to read through a list of accomplishments that he has done over his first 23 years, but rather we're going to show you his resume.
These men are soaking this in. They've been looking forward to it all year. They've been talking back and forth, and they are ready to settle this.
And you saw the third American there, 21-year-old Kessler. He's ready to run as well. The wait is over. The final of the men's 1500 is underway. And Ingebrigtsen in the white top, third from the left. He says, I'm thriving on this competitive scene. I love it. Bring it on. And he goes to the front straight away.
And this is the plan we thought Ingebrigtsen would have. He's going to go out and push this. He actually scared the world record a little bit just a few weeks ago, and he knows, or he believes, that he is faster than everyone else. So his plan, take this and make it a full 1,500-meter fight.
I'll plant the seed for you. The world record is 3:26 even. We'll revisit that later as the men are up to speed, and on the far left is one of the three Americans, Cole Hocker. He's coming up to join his teammates, Yared Nuguse and the 21-year-old Hans Kessler.
If Cole Hocker can stick in this, get around his American teammates, he could spoil the fun. This is your podium from Tokyo, first, second, third, right now, in the race, right now.
And look at the Americans on the bell lap. Yared Nuguse, Cole Hocker, and Hans Kessler. They're in the top six. And look at Hocker. Hocker can sniff a medal.
Hocker needs to move around Nuguse here if he's going to put himself in contention. 55.8 on that last lap. Josh Kerr is waiting. He needs to pounce now if he's going to take this title from Ingebrigtsen.
Look at Cole Hocker. He feels he can get a medal, and so too does Yared Nuguse. Hans Kessler wants in on the conversation. Ingebrigtsen. Cole Hocker on the inside. He gives him a little shove and Kerr goes by. Here comes Josh Kerr on the outside. All the talking is over.
I'm doubting there's too many of you that didn't know the outcome of that race before we just watched it. And that's the magic of the Olympic Games and performing at the highest level, is you can watch it over and over again. And I doubt any of you have watched it as many times as Cole has now for reasons like this, but we can still enjoy it. And now, in retrospect, it seemed like a natural conclusion, not conclusion, we have many years to go, a natural progression of all the things that he's done since he began running. So it seemed like a good place to start of how did he get into this. We want to cover a number of things over the next 45 minutes. But I think all of us here as runners, we had to have somebody in our lives that made running seem like a normal thing, because who would do this? So Cole, who was it in your life that made running seem like a reasonable alternative?
Yeah, at first it was my best friend. His older brother was really good, and I tried out a bunch of sports. My parents they were like, do whatever you want. They didn't push me into running, but then when it was clear that I had a natural gift, I wanted to go all in on it, and my parents were there to just help me do that and help me follow that.
So at some point in high school, maybe in middle school, but certainly in high school, before you won Foot Locker, you probably had a pretty good inclination that you could do this at a pretty high level in college. What was maybe a moment or a couple of moments that made you think, I can go big time in college on this?
Yeah, it's still kind of my same thought process now, but I didn't really ever allow myself to get too far ahead in thinking, and that was the goal like my freshman year, I had in my head that if I broke 16 in the 5K that I would be able to run D1, because I think I heard that somewhere, and I ran 15:59. So I'm like, all right, I'm on my way. But it was just every year I set similar goals like that, and then it became, how do I get to my dream school, which was Oregon, and how do I get a scholarship there? And it was all these little goals along the way. But I'd say, yeah, like my sophomore year, I had a pretty big breakthrough. I had a big mile PR, and definitely a Division I time. So yeah, my sophomore year in track, after that I was kind of thinking, okay, this is like a real possibility, but like let's get through 2 more years and stay healthy, really.
And then at some point in Oregon, somewhere amongst the championships, maybe before those, it probably occurred to you, I might be able to do this beyond college and kind of not like sleep on couches. I could be really good at this and maybe make it a viable career alternative.
Yeah, I think it was the same sort of story. I got there my freshman year and I had goals, and I wrote on my bathroom mirror NCAA champion when I got there as a freshman. I was thinking, I'll do this, I'll get it my 4th or 5th year at Oregon. I was ready to just do it, just do the whole process, and my 5th year, hopefully I'm fit enough. And then my sophomore year in college, the moment where turning professional kind of became a real possibility. Me and my teammate Cooper Tier just had a breakthrough mile race where we both ran 3:50, and it was blew our minds. I feel like it kind of opened the eyes of a lot of fans of the sport. It was a collegiate record, and we were cooling down from that race, 20 minutes after we just finished, and my other teammate was like, so are you gonna go pro or stick in school? And I was like, oh yeah, I guess that's like a legit thing. So that's definitely a moment where I was like, oh, I can really do this. But it was the same thing. I thought, well, if I'm gonna do it, I want to raise my stock as high as I possibly can. So that year, I mean, that was my breakthrough year as far as breaking into the professional scene. And the Olympic trials were later that summer, and I remember after that race I qualified for trials, and I was just so stoked. I was like, I'm gonna race in the Olympic trials, and 4 months later or whatever it was, I won. And it was just small goals after another, and it's like I didn't go into my sophomore year thinking that I was gonna go to the Olympics, but it was every race I wanted to win, I wanted to PR, and I wanted to keep beating people, and so it just kept compounding on top of each other, and yeah, that's how it went.
What I really like about that is writing it on your mirror, because I know that you had a little mechanism to think about, I can medal, I can get a gold medal. And can you talk a little bit about what that was for you to make sure that you believed it?
Yeah, it's the same. I still do the same thing, and I did the same thing this year, but I think if I wrote on my mirror All-American, I probably would have got All-American my sophomore year. And who knows, I might have got NCAA champion by my 5th year. But the fact that I forced myself to write that down, and it's, looking back on that, it's funny. I also wrote down 3:56 for the mile on my mirror. And I remember one of my teammates at Oregon came in and was like, well, first I hadn't broken 4, and he was like, first you have to break 4. I was like, well, yeah, but like, that's my goal. That's for me to see. I don't want you to see it. And now it's like 3:56. I've run way faster than that now. And so if I've learned anything, if you're writing a goal for yourself personally, don't even be realistic. Like, you should be realistic, but like, I've written down some pretty crazy goals that on paper, it's like, if I had another person watching me, they'd say, well, make it real goal, make it attainable this year. But it's like, I've surpassed those attainable goals, and so why would I not write that down? And so, yeah, this past build-up, at the beginning of my log, at the beginning of the year, in the back of my log, I wrote down Olympic champion in the 1500, and I wrote down the 1500 and the 5K, just full transparency. So, I'm glad I did, because I also became the best 5K runner I've ever been this past year. I didn't win that, obviously, but you probably have a good idea what I'm going to write down this year, too.
So your reach has exceeded your grasp. One of the beautiful things about the speed that you have is when you were able to consider being a medalist, why not gold? Because if you're in the mix at the end, great things can happen. What was it about Budapest that made you believe, I can do this?
Yeah, Budapest, for those that don't know, was the World Championships last year in 2023, and it was a really interesting build-up that year, because the 2022, I got injured 2 weeks before USA's, and I ran it, but I was just not fit. I didn't make it to the final, and so that was a big blow to me. And then the next year, 2023, I'm looking at it. This is my revenge tour, and I'm going to do everything I can in my power to stay healthy, get as fit as I can. And I had Achilles problems in that build-up, and so I had a 5-month build-up to the World Championships, and that's not enough time to be. I knew I could make it to the World Championships, but it wasn't enough time to be a medal contender in that one. And so it was a really weird build-up where it's no small feat to get to Worlds, and then you have to race 3 races. You have to qualify round 1 and round 2, and then you're in the final. And like all those little things, like something small can go wrong. Like you have to be on your A game. But I made it to the final, and I got 7th, which was, bittersweet. I hate losing, like maybe more than I like winning.
You never wrote 7th in your log.
No, absolutely not. But after a race like that, you have to, then you can give yourself some time to reflect and say, well, this was a truncated build-up. I got here, that was a huge goal. But there was something in that race where, I wasn't as far back from first as I was in the Tokyo Olympics, where a medal was like, in Tokyo, I was nowhere near medal contention. I ran a good race. I ran the race of my life up until that point, and I was happy with it, but I really wasn't within reach of that medal. In Budapest, it felt different. I was on the race was separated first to last probably by maybe 15 meters. So I saw first place right in front of me, and when I took that time to reflect on the race, then I thought, this was a year with a terrible, not an adequate build-up at all. And my Instagram post afterwards, I concluded it was saying, and I believe I can be the best in the world. And that's one of those things that I wrote down where I'm sure a bunch of people were like, yeah, well, you're a long way off Ingebrigtsen, you're a long way off Kerr. But I knew if I had a year where I stayed healthy and did everything right, that I truly believed I could be the best in the world. And that's exactly what 2024 build-up was. And a lot of things have to go right, obviously. And so I'm very fortunate that everything did, but I also did my part in controlling everything I could control.
So disappointment fueled the next build-up that went right, and we know what happened. So one of the things that you've said a number of times and has been pointed out is you've had the speed. Obviously, you were in contention in a lot of races. But over the last 12 months leading up to the Olympics, you got stronger. You were able to stay connected even when Ingebrigtsen is out hard. How did that happen? What changes in training did you make? Was it more volume, more quality, just lifetime base increasing? What was it that you think made the difference?
I think if you want to be a better runner, I think everyone here probably knows it, but the first thing is to identify your weakness, which is usually pretty easy when you have a bad race. There's only a few things really that it can be as far as, you got to keep everything healthy and moving right, first of all, but then it's like, do I have speed? And personally speaking, I've always had speed. I've just been a speed-based runner, and I looked at it, and my weakness overall was the strength component. And just that massive aerobic base that the 1500 at the global stage has been trending towards the past Olympic cycle, where to be the best 1500 meter runner, you have to be a world-class 5K runner. And so obviously that was an easy weakness to identify, but the hard part is torturing yourself and, for me, entering in 5K races with the best guys in the world. With the world record holder, I raced in LA in the 5K, and I got my butt handed to me in that race, but I ran lifetime PR. I broke 13 minutes in the 5K, which I just never thought I would have that kind of. I saw people like Mo Farah do that, and just comparing our bodies genetically, it's hard to look at someone like Mo Farah and be like, I think I can run that fast, but I was able to. But yeah, I did multiple 5Ks, and it hurt, and it exposed my weaknesses to my competitors, because there's a balance where you never want to get used to losing, but you can't let that get in the way of getting better. Or like, there's a lot of people, maybe not a lot, but there's certain people on the pro circuit that they won't ever race when they don't think they have like 90% chance of winning that race. In this 5K, I probably had a 50% chance of winning on my very best day, like if that. So it took a lot to identify the weakness, put myself in those uncomfortable positions, and my coach, obviously, he sees it, and we talk about it, and it's just so obvious. He's like, well, if you want to get better at the 15, you have to get better at the 5K. And so that's exactly what I did in the build-up. And when I ran that time, I was cooling down. I cooled down by myself, and cooled down for about 30 minutes, and I was talking to myself and just saying, like, again, I hate losing, but I was like, relax, this race had no stakes, you got better, there will be a time where this shows itself. And I could only hope and dream that the time that it would show itself was the 1500 at the Olympics, but it was just something that, like, I vividly remember on my cool down just saying, calm down, you lost, but you're gonna win, and you're gonna win when it matters most. And so, like, yeah, I'm really proud of that, really, on my build-up, because I was uncomfortable for a lot of the year, and it really paid off.
I think it's also interesting to note you also PR'd, correct me if I'm wrong, at 800 in the same year. You're PRing at 800, you're PRing at 5,000. It's kind of hard to go wrong in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. That was kind of my last sign that I needed, because I only raced 1 mile, the Bowerman Mile, on my build-up to the Olympic trials, which is a little daunting because you want to be comfortable, but I knew and my coach knew that that's my event and I'm comfortable at it. So, and then, lo and behold, as soon as trials start, I'm like, oh, it's on. Like, I ran 3:34 in the first round I just wanted to get through just easily, and I didn't look at the clock, and I kind of came back to my coach and he was like, you feel okay? Just because 3:34 is way faster than I really needed to go, but I was like, yeah, I felt like I was running, maybe 3:38. So that was just so relieving, because yeah, going into it, I had PR in the 5K, PR in the 800, matched my PR in the mile, and I'm just thinking, don't trip, just execute, don't get in a bad position. Even if I get in a bad position, I feel like I'm strong enough right now to pull out third at the very least at the Olympic trials. And so, yeah, that building both ends like that, it's hard to go wrong in the middle. Yeah, you're exactly right.
So you talked about going in Budapest. It was like a 5-month build-up, which was inadequate to be where you wanted to be. You had a good 12 months leading into the Olympic Games. People might think, do you really need that long to get ready for a mile? So obviously the year is spent doing different things with different emphasis. Can you give us kind of an overview of what you and Coach Thomas, how you break down a year?
Yeah, without getting too boring into the specifics.
This is a group of geeks. I don't think you're going to get too boring, but answer it as you will.
Yeah, I was touching on it a little bit where, obviously the overarching theme is For me, I want to build up my base, and I don't want to neglect my speed ever. Like, naturally, speed comes to me easier than the base, but you never want to neglect an area. So it's a balance, and it's the whole year of, as far as like the professional circuit, the late fall, like right now I'm just getting back into legit training. So it's, been whatever, a month and a half since my season ended. But it's going to be a very slow, very gradual build, but I want to get back. I want everything firing. I want everything strong. Once I'm there, I can build base. And then the indoor season is nice because, at least the way we approach it, you can't neglect the speed there. You have to be firing, and I always want to win USA Championships indoor. And the past year, I wanted to go to the Worlds, and I got silver there, but the goal was always the summer, but you have to have that little spike there. So, I mean, if you're looking at it like a graph, you got a spike and you got to get everything going right, but then you dip a little bit, and then you want to be here in August and September. And so,
so kind of a minor peak, major peak.
Yeah, exactly. Which,
okay.
Yeah,
and building strength throughout.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, nothing earth-shattering, but there's a method to it.
Speaking of earth-shattering, one of the sexier things about high-level training is the boring stuff, the consistency, the taking care of your body. Can you talk a little bit about the importance that you placed on that and how your perspective on that?
Yeah, the big difference from 2023 to 2024 was the fact that I stayed healthy. I don't think that's anything new to anyone here, but that is really that if you don't have health, then nothing else matters. So as far as, I'm fortunate enough to do this as a career and get paid to do it. And if I'm ever like, this will help me recover, it's a no-brainer to spend the money on it. It's an investment not only in, my body, but I look at it as, my career, my legacy. So it's just a no-brainer to me to invest in your body. But it's just so important. Like I said, Budapest I got 7th, but I was just like, if I stay healthy, I feel like I have no limit. Like, I don't know, and now I feel the same way. What can I do with 2 healthy years? Like, it just like, health is over everything in running.
So as you progress, and we've already discussed your range of PRs last year, what are you looking at in training in terms of metrics? There's only so much you can take off of your 200 time. There's only so much you can take off your 400 time. Not that you're racing those in open meets at this point in your career, but in training, I'm in this kind of shape for 200 or 400. Has that increased more, or is it a matter you can do more reps of something, or you can do it with less rest, or how is that working out? How are you seeing that in workouts?
I think that's a really good question, because a lot of my training, me and my teammates talk about a lot, where we don't do time trials in training where we run a mile and know, I'm in 355 shape or whatever. It's kind of these arbitrary workouts where we trust a lot in our coach, and we get to race day and we feel like we've done no race simulation or anything, and then we go out there and we PR. And so there's a lot of trust in our coach, but you have to, I guess going back to your question, the difference for me is just, it's always stopping before you've gone too far. And if I can just keep consistency, that's so much better than one crazy workout that I can post on Strava and then I'm hurt a week later. It's just like, our coach usually stops the workout before we push it too far. And I've gotten better with that, just progressing through my career and through running. And I think everyone learns that and their limit as they go. But, also working with my coach for the past 5 years, we found about where injuries start to crop up. And so we find it's another thing of identifying the weakness and then what are you going to do about it? And so we find ways to supplement that in. If I can only run 75 miles a week, feeling healthy, feeling ready to go in workouts, then what can I do to build up? And the answer for me is hopping on the bike and getting in the pool and just trying to increase my VO2 max really as much as I can, but just with limiting stress on the body.
So we've already watched the race, and I'm kind of going a roundabout way to get back to it. But a couple of things that struck me watching it when it happened was at 300 meters, I looked at all the players in that, and I thought everybody is thrilled with the race right now. At 300 meters, nobody wants to trade places. They're all happy. Did you feel that way? I think you felt that way with a quarter to go. But did you feel that everybody else was kind of running their game plan too?
300 meters in or 300 meters to go?
300 meters to go.
Yeah, I think that's like part of the reason I think that the 1500 alone, but that race specifically is so beautiful is because, Ingebrigtsen ran that race to his strength. He's going to go to the front and tighten the screws and see who can hold on. And, in the past, that's worked, but it seems like everyone's catching up. And it was like, I loved my position with 300 meters to go. With 300 to go, I knew I was going to medal, which I think kind of sparked something in my head where it was like, well, this is the moment, like, you're going to do it. Like, this is insane. And it was kind of adrenaline at that point. But then I think it goes back to writing down gold medal to where my subconscious, is playing its part. And when the inside opened up, I knew I had to take advantage of it. And it wasn't a decision I made. It was just instinct. And I just went. But yeah, it was the same. Josh Kerr ran the race, his best race, where he keys off Ingebrigtsen, and it was almost, if I wasn't there, it would have been an exact replay of the previous World Championships, where he comes around with 100 meters to go, and Ingebrigtsen falls back. And then Ngus also just has such a strong finish, where he has a really strong last 30 meters, where it's crazy. He can just throw his body over the line, it seems like. So you have to be outside of striking distance of him, but I was right in exactly where I wanted to be. You can see it in the video. Those two are focused on each other, and I see that and I feel that, and I'm like, I can't believe it. It's actually it's playing out almost like how I imagined it and visualized it, and then just blowing by them, just so satisfying.
It was kind of satisfying for us to watch too. I think you made just another among multiple interesting points there, and one is you said gold. So when there's 300 to go and you're in pain and you're feeling like you're close to your limit, you're not saying medal's good. No, that's not the goal. You've already made that commitment. That's awesome. Now, as fast as you are in all the races you won and so forth, I bet you never get nervous before a race. There's people out here that might be a little nervous about what's going to happen tomorrow and how the training's gone and the weather and whatever else. So how do you avoid being nervous?
Yeah, I haven't gotten nervous in years before a race. I've got that figured out. No, not at all. He's setting me up. He's alley-ooping me, because the Olympics, I talked to other Olympians too after the fact, but this is applicable to so many races, but I thought in 2021, I was so nervous in Tokyo, and it was so nerve-wracking that it kind of took over my body, and it was overwhelming to the point where I wasn't even really processing it anymore. And I thought, all right, well, by 2024, that'll be my second time around. I'll have it figured out. I won't be nervous. That was the most nervous I've ever been. At the build-up, the whole week building up, sitting in the village, just in my bed, trying to stay off my feet. I try not to think about the race at all, and it feels like just it feels like a wave that's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you're in the call room with all these guys that you've raced, before, you know how good they are. It's Olympic champions, world champions. And it's still just equally as nerve-wracking. You can see everyone doing their little strategy, avoiding eye contact. Everyone's nervous in there, which helps a little bit because I'm like, you can just see it on everyone's face. It's nerve-wracking. But what I've started telling myself is that I know the nerves are coming, and so what can I do preemptively to eliminate as much as I can? I know it's going to be there, but what can I do to limit them? And so it's pretty obvious, but it's just doing absolutely everything in training. And while I'm training, I tell myself that when you get to race day, when you get to the start line, I want to be able to tell myself, I've done absolutely everything I can. I've eaten right, I've trained right, I've slept right, I've recovered. And I was able to say that on the start line in Paris. And it just, you have to set yourself up to reduce the doubt, because on race day, you know doubt will creep in. But that's just my rule of thumb, just going forward. And when I get nervous on race day, I just tell myself, you knew this was coming, you prepared for it. Like, so what? It's like this internal dialogue of me and my, the part of me that's doubting. And I'm saying, why are you doubting? Like, even if you lose this race, you did everything you could. So, the result's almost predetermined by the time you're at the start line. You just have to run the race at that point. So that's what I do to control my nerves. But I think when I accepted that I'm never gonna be not nervous, that also made it easier, because the nerves will always be there. And I think if they're not, then you don't really care about the race.
So we're seeing a lot of box checking here from a couple of standpoints. One, you talked about the 5,000, which if you would have won in 12:58, it would have been a different feel than getting, I forget what it was, but it was back a few spots. But it would check the box. You accomplished something that you wanted to, that you knew was important for the bigger goal. You're nervous, you're thinking about all the things that you've done. Can you talk about maybe you've done this, maybe you haven't, in looking forward to 2025, are you setting up those boxes that you're going to check? Obviously you have some that will be there every year, but are there new ones that you're thinking?
Yeah, 100%. And it's pretty easy in track because, I've run 12:58 now, but I know I can get stronger, and so you can always get faster. And I can also run a faster 800. And I can set up these things right now while I have the time before the season starts rolling, set up my physical therapy, set up my massage schedule, set it all up, and I can just, like exactly what you're saying, check these boxes. And through the season, there will be so many little goals along the way. There's no shortness of titles in track and field. Maybe to the general masses, the Olympics are once every 4 years, but for track fans, you have USAs every year, you have indoor USAs, you have a world championships most years that it's not an Olympic year. So there's so many goals along the way, and boxes to check.
So now that you're pro, this is your living, your life revolves around this. What are the things that you have really enjoyed and embraced about being a pro, and the things that go along with it?
Yeah, like I said, I'm extremely fortunate to be able to do this full time. And when I was at the University of Oregon and turning to a professional runner, that was the dream once I got there. And it was just one of those things that was kind of a no-brainer to me once the opportunity presented itself. But really, just the fact that I can go just 100% on something, it's really a gift to be able to do that. But with that, I like to kind of say, well, I'm so fortunate to be able to do this. I'm not giving this 80%. I'm not giving it 90%. I have to give this 100%, because who gets this opportunity? And it's pretty cool to then go to the Olympics and represent the United States, represent Nike, the brand that supports me, and represent myself, have my name on it. And it's like, this is where I showcase it, and kind of, in a way, give back, just showing I gave this 100%. Like, I hope you can appreciate it.
And I think we can. So, what is it about being pro that is part of the deal? Something that you wouldn't choose, but you know that this has to be done. What are those things that maybe the average track fan wouldn't notice that you go through on a regular basis?
Yeah, I mean,
I love that he struggled with that. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
If he had too long of a list, we'd be worried.
That's the thing. I feel like most of these issues are very nice issues to have, and so, like, that's why I have so much admiration for anyone who's prepping for, especially a marathon, where if you're running a marathon, you're probably running more miles a week than I am, which it blows my mind that you can do anything outside of that, because I run and then I go home and I recover and then I run again. And so that's always blows my mind. But again, a nice problem to have, but a reason that the Olympic trials, if you talk to a lot of other Americans, they will tell you that that's the most nerve-wracking race of the entire year, more nerve-wracking than the Olympics, more than the World Championships. And a lot of that's because your contract depends on making a team. Everyone's different, or it's usually based on, it could be place top 5 at trials, place top 10 at trials. For me and a lot of other people, it's you make the team or you don't, and it's pretty cutthroat because you can just trip, and you can have a 4-year build-up that's really perfect, and then you can get tripped up and your race is gone, and then you have to think, how much money did that just cost me? Which it's just not a fun pressure when already runners especially put so much pressure on themselves. For me, the personal internal pressure is far outweighs any monetary pressures, which I don't know if the same can be said for every track athlete, but that's one thing where I turned pro from Oregon, and when you're in college, you're just racing for the title and your legacy in college, and the fact that you can say I was All-American or I won a national championship, and then you turn professional, and the last thing you want to be thinking of, if I don't do that, then I'm losing this. So that's just an added pressure, but again, just the fact that you can get paid to do it is already pretty crazy.
So not a paycheck player, all heart.
I like to think so.
So you've been through a lot, you've had a lot of success, you've had a lot of opportunities thrown your way, some that were worth taking, others maybe not so much. What is it that keeps you grounded? What, I assume the people around you, and maybe we can credit your parents for raising you right, or what is it that keeps you grounded through this whole process?
Yeah, it's a little bit what I was saying earlier, where a lot of people have entrusted me with performing. It's not like my parents took me to practice and gave me these things because they wanted me to, I don't know, because they were expecting something in return. That wasn't the case at all, but there has been sacrifices by people along the way, including I moved across the country to Virginia, and my girlfriend was just fully on board with that, and it's things like that where she moved there because my job took me there, not hers, and she entrusted me with that, and I was like, okay, if you trusted me, then I'm gonna give at least this Olympic cycle, I'm gonna give it everything. And so all those people that support me, and again, obviously, Nike is my sponsor and it's business, but I like to also show them that they made the right decision, and it's again, I just want to show them that I'm not sacrificing anything, and I'm not kicking my feet up because I signed professional. I don't want to ever feel like I arrived. And that's still the case now, where I won gold. That was obviously the pinnacle of my career so far and what I wanted to accomplish. But I have no intentions of, kicking my feet up. Like I just feel like it's just the beginning.
What really strikes me in talking with you is that you're not thinking too far ahead. You're thinking about, what do I need to do now? Obviously, there's big goals out there, some that you'll write down, training log or mirror. But for me, it's interesting to see what is next. The top 6 in the 1500 final were average age of 23. The bottom 6 were average age of 26. So it's not an old man sport. So you look at that, but you also look at Sebastian Coe, who won in 80-84, the only person to ever do it twice. So you have some years to do that. You have Nick Willis, who medaled at age 33. So if we look at that, you got 10 more years, and the way you're taking care of your body, you might have more than that. What is it that gets you out excited about next season and next season and next season, and not thinking beyond this career?
Yeah, I think I've just gotten used to, I always say you have to have a short memory in track and field, and running in general, just because, well, you have to have a short memory because you have to be able to move on from a bad race, and you also have to be able to move on from a good race, because there's always something else, and the memory of the spectator is also very short. And so, Josh
as
Kerr,
witnessed by message boards.
Yeah. Well, I try my best not to get on any message boards. But yeah, just like take Josh Kerr, for example. You're the world champion, and of course he still got silver, but 365 days later, he's not the best in the world at the 1500 anymore. Like, it just happens so quick, and you always have to stay on your A game. And yeah, I feel like I've just trained myself to always prepare for the next step. Like when I got to college, it was, I want to do this, and then I won an NCAA title, and then it quickly changed to, I want to be the best NCAA runner ever. And then I got to professional level, and it's the same thing, where the goal is always changing. And so, I wanted to win a gold medal. I want to win a world championship. But now it's like, how many can I win? It's the same thing. I want to be one of the best runners ever.
Talk about some other things that you have going. Your YouTube channel, for example, is I think a great mix of showing a little bit of the life of the professional, but also more of the hardcore training. You're getting a good mix of that. Obviously, you're putting some time and energy into doing that. I know that you have, after the Olympics, you had special T-shirts made, those kind of things. Can you talk about that and kind of maybe how you see this as a business and what you want to do going forward?
Yeah, there's a lot of things like the YouTube channel. I mean, it's fun for us to do, but it's also, like, we started this past year in an Olympic build-up. You don't have a lot of time to think about other things, and you really have to hire people to do a lot of the things we're figuring out on the scale that we want to. But really, the running community can be so niche. There's so many runners, but not a lot are tapped into the professional track and field circuit, which that's my whole life. And so, I come to events like this, and there's thousands of people, and for the Indianapolis Marathon, and I'm just, it's crazy to me. The barrier to entry for this sport is so low. Like, you just get out and run, and really, like, we kind of want to show that it's the same sport from your first time running to running the 1500 in the Olympics. Like, it's the same sport. You just get faster and faster, and everything's so relative. But we just really want to engage a community. As maybe that sounds corny, but it's true, and it's just pretty cool to have an impact on. We've already seen, like, young runners especially. It's pretty cool to have an impact on them, and now I feel like I have a platform where I'm able to do that, and people will listen to what I say, and and I have the credentials, I guess, to back it up.
And what I enjoy about that, and observing you, and also getting to talk with you here today, is the way that you carry yourself so professionally, but also kind and courteous, and caring about the other runners as well. When at your level, maybe you don't have to do that, but you're choosing to. So we appreciate all your time that you've given us today. I know there's a lot of people that want to shake hands and get pictures. I know you have to get to your next session, so we'll get you there. For those of you, okay, all right. You want in? Okay, all right. I guess we're going to take a selfie with all of you in the background. So I believe it's room 124 that he's going to for a meet and greet. We're going to get him out of here so he can be there on time.
Check out the video description to get more videos of the Olympic trials from 2024 and 2020 that I have on my YouTube channel with Cole Hocker, Paris Olympic champion.